Okay, let's go.
It's time for Be Picked. When you're ready to move from clicks to clients, learn to be picked.
Welcome back to another episode of Be Picked, the podcast where we talk with professional service providers about how to build and grow your business. I'm your host, Andrew Colsky, and today we are talking with Dominick DeJoy. He is a B2B paid media agency owner of Osric Digital, and he's got a lot of tips and tricks to share with us today. So, Dominick, welcome to the show.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on.
So, our audience is small professional service providers, and many of them, maybe they're starting their practices. Maybe they've been going for a while, but now they're realizing they need to kind of get out there more because they want to pick up more clients and become better known and take advantage of the opportunities that online gives someone like them. If you could give us sort of just a generalized overview, if someone like that comes to your agency and says, hey, I don't even know where to start, what should I be thinking about? What types of things might you tell them that they should think about? What are some things that are absolutes and what are some things that are nice to haves?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm going to gauge a little bit on kind of like how mature their practice or firm is, right? But I mean, I think on some level you have to think about like, okay, where does what I do sit in the market? As in like not in terms of aspirations, you have to be kind of honest with yourself and be like, how do people perceive me? Um, Both how does Google perceive me, but any kind of search network or algorithm, but also like the people I talk to in kind of my community, like, do people perceive me as like number one? In which case I have a good reputation. I need to preserve it. Everyone else is going to be kind of reacting to me, right? That's like kind of the market leader position. Am I someone trying to be number one that can plausibly be seen as a challenger? In that case, I'm going to be trying to countersell against who everyone perceives to be number one. And it can be like basically not attacking as in like defaming, but like trying to show how I feel or some gaps that this market leader doesn't fully fill in properly. So maybe there's certain people for whom that's important, they should go with me. The third category would be like kind of a flanker. So you're like not number one, you're not number two, but you're kind of in the running and you have some resources to kind of really go at it. In that case, you're going to want to try to create a new category or kind of redefine the battlefield, move the fight to kind of like how you want to fight the terrain. Or like most people, are you kind of in the kind of guerrilla position, which is kind of politically incorrect. I'm taking this from a book called Marketing Warfare, published in the 80s. So they don't use the exact same terminology exactly, but most people are going to be in this kind of guerrilla position where you need to find a niche that's kind of small enough to defend. So that's usually where we start. Oftentimes people that come to me, they speak in very aspirational ways. So I have to kind of like talk them down a little bit. So that's usually useful.
Okay. So let's follow that through for a second. Person that comes to you, could be a chiropractor. They could be a real estate agent. They could be a bankruptcy attorney, whatever it may be. So they've got a practice that typically operates in a smaller geographic area, within driving distance of their office, typically. And they're hearing from their colleagues that, oh man, you really need to be on LinkedIn, or you really need to be on X, or you really need to be on whatever, one of multiple different social media platforms and all this stuff. And you got to have a great website, and oh, don't forget about SEO. And they're getting hit with all these terms and all these, sites and all these things. Where do they even begin to start? Is there a path that would be most relevant for them, and then other things they pick up later, or what do you tell them to do?
So especially if you're local, it kind of makes it easier because your market set is a lot more narrow and you're already niched to a certain extent because you're kind of just providing services in that local area. Um, it means also your competitive set is a bit smaller. Um, I think, you have to think about what your time frame is. So if your main priority is like transactions, deals coming through right away, then you need to kind of do what would in our parlance is called like bottom of the funnel sort of tactics. So like marketplace sites, like I know for lawyers, there used to be something called law trades. For like agencies, there's like Upwork. For real estate agents, at least in New York, it's Street Easy, right? And there you're kind of, it's brutally competitive. You're pitted against everyone else, right? Because it's bottom of the funnel, transactional, easy, whatever. But it's, you got to do what you got to do to be there to kind of get stuff coming in the door. Next level up from that is like, okay, these marketplaces have done the work of like creating or curating an audience of people that are looking to buy. How do they find that? Usually it's Google, either Google Maps or just Google. So then the next thing to focus on is probably local Google search, and make sure you have a Google business profile, make sure it's verified, make sure it's optimized in the sense of like, if you have a physical storefront, have pictures of that, have pictures of your team, make sure the hours of that, like you can do a lot with that because you want Google to rank your business on the map pack as high as possible. Try and get reviews. So that's like the next step up from a marketplace like Street Easy. And you can get pretty far just with that. You don't even necessarily need a website, but it's a good idea. So then the next step above that is having a website. Again, if it's local, I mean, this doesn't really apply as much in like massive cities like New York, but if you're in like a suburb or even like a medium-sized city, one of my clients for a long time is a lawyer in Sacramento, which is it's the capital of California. It's a real city. Just probate lawyer, Sacramento, like variations of that term were like enough. And his homepage, which is like, it was a little bit more than a landing page, but like a few additional pages, but that was enough.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like LinkedIn, Meta, I would worry about that more if you're like trying to get into like national markets, or if you're just like kind of, if Google is for some reason too competitive for you, or your Google business profile gets banned or something like that. But I mean, LinkedIn is tough, and most service providers, I know my temptation when I go on LinkedIn is just to talk about nerdy PPC stuff, like PPC's pay-per-click stuff. And
Thanks.
I do get a lot of engagement, but it's all from other like PPC agency owners. So it's not the people I want to talk to. So
Right.
I wouldn't worry about that too much at first.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, one of the things that you said in there is really making sure that the person is understanding what their particular niche market is and then saying that. So in other words, maybe I am a probate attorney in Sacramento, but I go out there and I create a website about probate law general, and I do something else on the web, and I again stay very general about probate law. In other words, if I really want to be able to focus on a market for me, I need to say that not only that I do probate law, but I do it in Sacramento. And if there's any other modifiers, again, that's going to narrow me to an even more specific niche. And I think some people, when they hear that, they think, oh, but I can do so much more. Why do I want to narrow myself down to such a small thing? What's the realities behind the pros and cons of that?
Well, the reality is that Google has two different algorithms. They have a local algorithm, and then they have a national algorithm. So if you go into the national, like it's way easier to rank in the local algorithm. Google's much more forgiving. But to get into the local algorithm, you just have to use local modifiers. So like Sacramento, like instead of probate law, Sacramento probate law, right? Sacramento probate lawyer. Then you're in the local algorithm. Once you're in that algorithm, you can make a lot of mistakes that if you were competing for national keywords, Google would really punish you for. I won't even get into it, but like a lot of times if you buy, I'll get into it a little bit. You go on Fiverr and you buy some citations because, you read somewhere that like you should submit your site to citations. Google will rank it faster. That's all true. if you buy the wrong kinds of citations, like basically from guys that are just selling them in bulk that are maybe offshore. I mean, nothing against people that are offshore, but maybe they're just trying to do massive volume and they put you on a lot of spammy sites. The national algorithm will crush you for that. But the local algorithm will not, because Google knows these local businesses are not so sophisticated. They don't expect them to really be very clever about who they who they kind of get links from. Another thing I would say about that is that if you go after national terms, then you're competing with people that are professional. I'm not even really in SEO, but professional marketers like me who are going to be okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a niche site around probate law. I'm going to use all my tricks. I'm going to build it up over 2 or 3 years, and I'm going to sell advertising space to people that want access to my audience. If you're a probate lawyer who's spending 40 hours a week doing probate law, doing a little bit of this on the side, do you want to go against someone like that? It doesn't make any sense, really. So if you have a local modifier you can add, always do it. You can have multiple local modifiers. So if you have an office in multiple places, then just do the same strategy for every office.
Right. Yeah, and one interesting exercise I think listeners can do, because I did it once and it was kind of fun. I went onto YouTube and I looked up a term. I don't remember what it was. It was like I said, bankruptcy attorney or divorce attorney or something like that, and just videos all over the place. Then I looked up divorce attorney, Washington, D.C. Totally different set of videos. Actually, I don't remember what it was specifically that I looked for, but the thing I looked for, there was one person that came up who had videos, and videos were not very good, but it was the only person that came up. So if I was searching for somebody and I happened to search that direction, well, that person's name is right in front of me and yours isn't. Right? If you don't have a video out there, your name is not there. The other person's name is. So it is really interesting when you start thinking local versus global. And this is another one that I read a lot about. There's a lot of attorneys, for example, who are in the personal injury field. So there's huge competition for those keywords and things when you're looking for ads. Tell us about that, local versus national. If someone is a personal injury attorney in Sacramento, California, how could they best differentiate themselves so that they become more visible?
So personal injury, as I'm sure you know, is probably the hardest, one of the hardest niches in PPC. Certainly you have to go after local terms. The problem is that the national personal injury law firms are also going to go after local terms in a niche that's that competitive, right? So you either need to go after things that are so long tail that they don't bother these firms aren't bothering bidding on them. Generally, though, they're doing
define long
math.
tail for us.
So long tail would just be very specific versions of a term with a lot of modifiers. So not just mesothelioma lawyer or Sacramento, but variations of that term that get a lot less search volume. And you bid kind of exact match. And then you also really control the bid so that if you end up in an auction against one of these major national firms that's willing to pay, $800 a click or whatever, the algorithm doesn't say, oh, let's go for it anyway. So yeah, that's what I mean. I won't claim to be an expert on personal injury law, PPC. There's a whole subspecialty of PPC agencies that only do personal injury because it's so hyper competitive, but in a broad sense, that's what works. I would also say you can differentiate yourself. The landing pages for these national firms are going to be somewhat generic and probably programmatically generated. So it's just going to be the same landing page they use for every other city, but just with the local modifier added. So what you can do, right, is you can because you probably your listeners only practice in one specific area, actually pull in cases you've done in that area. Try and get testimonials that are local. Make the testimonials look really like people will often buy like don't do I don't even know if it's legal to do in law, but don't do that. Like have people actually talk about their connection to the community. That's a way to differentiate yourself too.
Hmm. Hmm. So, yeah, and in a lot of our other podcast episodes, we talk about the fact that, you know, getting out there in the community in a way that people just get to know who you are, and they learn your personality, they learn your values, they see you, maybe they've shaken your hand at the local coffee shop or something, depending on how small or how big of an area you're in. But, you know, having and if you are doing a good job, it shouldn't be that hard to get legitimate reviews that are good reviews, but you have to ask for them. People are not going to typically say, oh, how do I go and review you? But if you say to them, would you mind reviewing us, and here's our link or something, you're going to get a much better chance of getting some valid and good reviews. um so you know what is the difference for someone who is they're trying to build their business? Yes, they want clients right away, clearly, but they're also thinking about the future and the long term. What is the difference that they should be thinking about between something like the pay-per-click Google ads and Meta ads and LinkedIn ads and all these different types of advertising options where you can put a lot of money out there versus long-term growth? Is there a different strategy between the two?
Uh, I wouldn't say necessarily. I mean, I think that the bottom of funnel, the really kind of like bottom of funnel PPC stuff through Google ads and Bing ads and these kind of marketplaces I was referring to earlier. Um, there isn't, you're not really building a brand, but I mean, you could turn it into a brand building exercise by developing relationships with the customers that are coming in, even if they don't end up choosing you. That you can give people with a good, like if you offer like a kind of consultation or talk to them a little bit, uh, you can at least build a kind of a sort of presence there. They'll remember you. Um, but it is a kind of short term. You stop bidding on in the auction, and Google's going to stop showing you. Um, and it's not like you're getting I mean, your name is there. I guess that's good. With advertising, it's really more about. I mean, there's multiple layers of advertising, but if you're doing kind of like mid funnel awareness sorts of things, not everyone has to do this, but the game is basically to get in front of your ideal customer. I mean, probably a given market. I do a lot with software companies, like kind of B2B software companies, where like usually people are in long-term contracts of at least a year. So even though someone's in your target market, they can only 5% of your target market is actually in a position to change vendors at a given moment. So the game is basically to get in front of them enough times per month so that when that contract comes up for renewal, they like at least remember that you exist, associate you with that category, and potentially consider you. Um, for certain kinds of local businesses, I think that does apply, and it could be worth doing. I can imagine there's a reason why like some local law firms are just like their billboards are everywhere, and they're spending a lot of money on TV commercials and things like that, and like you have to be making a lot of money to do that. But there's a reason why they do it, because a large percentage, and it's not just direct response advertising. It's just like a lot of people like they're like, oh, I was in a car accident and like wasn't like let me call the name that I remember from the billboard.
Right.
Um, so yeah. And I think a big mistake people make is they expect that those sorts of ads to have the same immediate return on investment that like a Google ad would have, and it's a totally different kind of advertising.
So if you're a much smaller practice, maybe even a solo practitioner, and you want to do something that's going to address that, what you're calling the middle of the funnel, um, being consistently in front of people, keeping yourself there so they can remember that you exist, those types of things. What options are available to you if you don't have this budget for big billboards and other types of ads like that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends a little bit on where your prospects are. I think if you are like if you're selling B2B and people read trade and people read trade publications and things like that and they're local, trying to get in those publications is like oftentimes you could finagle a way to be kind of like a columnist. Some trade publications, God forbid, I've heard, you can maybe work out a deal where you like pay to be a contributor. I don't know. I heard that somewhere. Um, that's a way. Another way is just, yeah, buying ads in those in those things. That can be kind of expensive, but you just, if you're intentional about where you do the media buys, it can make sense. Um, Also producing content, if there is a way to um, kind of keep people engaging with your content, but it really depends on who your ideal customer is. Like, I guess in my case, right? Like, I'm relatively small agency. I don't have like a huge budget for middle funnel and top of funnel stuff, but I do run LinkedIn ads. I don't spend, I mean, a lot of LinkedIn ads agencies would say, unless you're spending 5K a month, don't bother with LinkedIn ads, but I run them anyway. I spend like $1,000 a month and I just have like a target list that I uploaded, which is like my kind of like 500 companies that I would like to work with. And then
Uh-huh.
I added additional targeting layers to trim it down to a small enough size that like $1,000 to $2,000 a month would get those ads in front of people 3 to 5 times a month. And that's how I did it. If you're doing a local services business, I sell B2B nationally. If you're doing a local services business, you can do the same thing with Meta. Um, so that's also an option.
Right. So do you see any return on that? Like the ads that you're doing on LinkedIn, does it pay off? Is it worth it to you?
Sporadically. It's not like it's not like Google Ads where I'm like trying to get, 3 to 4x return on ad spend based on first year contract value every month. LinkedIn ads is more like, but I'm kind of at the mercy of what comes in. LinkedIn ads is more like I get one of like a perfect customer once every 4 or 5 months from it. So I'll be negative. I'll be in the hole 4 or 5 months in a row, and I'll be like kind of tempted to turn it off. And then someone who's like really just like my ideal customer, and like because they're my ideal customer, they're my reference clients, really land much better with them, and the whole sales process is way easier. And then I remember like kind of why I do it. So it has a similar return on ad spend to Google, but like not consistently. It's more like you have to look at it over the course of a full year.
Right. Okay. And then I wanted to follow up on something you said about like being in a trade journal, for example. So maybe you are trying to think of a B2B thing that would have a local trade journal. Um, I don't know. Something health related, let's say. Let's just say there's a trade journal that's hitting your particular market. So B2B, the businesses that you want to attract, they have a trade journal. You want to get your message in front of them. The difference between you getting an article in that journal or having a regular column versus paying for ads, is there a difference or does it not matter which way as long as you're in the trade journal?
Um, I mean, I think the organic presence is more valuable. Um, it's tough to kind of quantify, but I'd certainly rather have the organic presence or both. Maybe you do both. Um, and then if you can't get your own, if you can't get your own, column right away, just like start, feeding you can be a source. I mean, a lot of these journalists are like, especially for these they don't have a lot of time or like they're part-time or whatever. If you can and they don't have a lot of time to like find a diversity of sources, if you can kind of get in front of it, if you can build a relationship with them so that it's really easy for them to quote you as a source, they'll usually keep coming back.
Okay. And I believe that if you do purchase a regular ad spend in some of these journals, if you just ask, will they also post an article that you do or something? Oftentimes they're happy to do that from what I hear. So you get kind of a double double whammy there. You're seeing more than just in an ad. Um so so let me ask one other thing for clarification. You know, throughout our conversation, you've referenced this funnel, and you've referenced bottom of the funnel and middle of the funnel. Can you just give us the benefit of an explanation? What is a funnel? What do we expect to see at different stages in a funnel, and why would somebody need one?
Yeah, I mean, a funnel is like sort of imperfect way of thinking about it, but it's just kind of ubiquitous, so I use it, and to a certain extent, I think that way. Uh, so, and there are different versions of it. I think the most basic is top, middle, bottom, but there's also like I forget the exact. There's like kind of there's like awareness, basically just like awareness, consideration, and kind of transactional, commercial, and then transactional. There's different versions. Basically, there are people at the kind of the people you want to build awareness with are people that are not really necessarily aware they have a problem, but they might develop the problem that you solve at some point in the future. So this is like, and then the people that are kind of a little at the middle of the funnel, I would say, are like aware that they have a problem, but they haven't really decided necessarily how they're going to think about the problem or conceptualize it. So like maybe they're having like a argument with their business partner. It's not going super well. They haven't really decided whether they want to hire a mediator, whether they want to hire like a mental health counselor. I mean, all right, let's say they've decided they want to go like some kind of sort of legal route, but like they haven't decided whether they want to hire a mediator, whether they want to hire like a litigator to sue their partner, or like what they want to do. So that's kind of like they're just researching. They know they have this problem, but they haven't decided exactly how they want to approach it. And then there's the bottom of the funnel would be people that are looking for, you know, a litigator in Peoria, Illinois, who specializes in partnership disputes, or in mediation, or something like that.
Okay. Okay. So, all right, let me see. Oh, I know. One other thing that I did want to ask you about is today we're hearing all about how AI and AI search is impacting, people's use of the internet and finding people. W- Tell us a little bit about your experience with that. Where, if you're working with a client and they ask you, do I need to worry about this? What is your response to them?
So it does matter in general. For local businesses, doesn't matter very much. Um, Again, two algorithms. So Google is not going to crush local businesses by putting AI overviews over transactional local terms. I think that would be bad PR for them. Especially, I mean, right now, the Biden administration's over, so they're not getting, pursued as aggressively as they were before. But I think it would be a bad look. Um, where what it does affect is like things like blog content that you used to be able to rank to build a relationship with people. That's just kind of eviscerated now. So at this kind of like more informational level, it's kind of a problem. You also, I think something that's a little bit out of left field is that the value of information has like dropped quite a lot. So just giving people information that isn't personalized and isn't like packaged through like some kind of persona or like a relationship or whatever, like the value of that has dropped down a lot. No one's giving you their email to get like kind of basic answer. I mean, some people are, but the effectiveness of that tactic has dropped quite a bit. Um, I guess one last thing to be aware of is like, yeah, I mean, it's probably a good idea to monitor who's coming in the same way you would monitor your position in the map pack or in like you know, the search results for Sacramento probate lawyer. If someone searches in ChatGPT, like list me some good Sacramento probate lawyers, you know, you want to be aware of whether the LLMs are listing you. There's some like cheap software that you can use to do that. And but the good news is actually ranking in that is basically the same as with SEO, except it's actually easier to manipulate, which is both good and bad. Something I talk about quite a lot. Google, since they've been doing in search for like more than when did they become dominant? Like basically 25 years ago, they developed very sophisticated ways of determining like who's credible and who's not when people make claims. I mean, it's still easy. You can still game it, but it's hard. LLMs just repeat whatever is in there, whatever they're ingesting. So
Right.
if you want to game it, you can just, you know, buy junk listicles, publish press releases about your junk listicles, and then at a local market, I mean, you're going to be there right away. I'm not condoning that tactic. I'm just saying that
Right.
it's something that people are talking about. And as of right now, which is like May 2026, it works. And the LLMs have not integrated any kind of source validation process really at all, almost to like a scary extent, because people are using it for like medical advice and things like that. And like the sources that are being pulled, like if you like are, I mean, if you ask general things, it will generally pull from like NIH and like medical journals and things like that. But then if you ask it like, okay, like of these products that you've been talking about that are like approved, which is the best one? It's just going to be Healthline, like affiliate spam articles, basically. It's really awful. Anyway, that was maybe more than you wanted, but that's my take.
Well, but so just one more question for clarification. So if I am a physical therapist and I'm in a particular area, I don't know, Des Moines, Iowa, whatever. And I know that when people go on Google, they typically, if they're looking for something like me, they'll say, physical therapist near me, big common term.
Yeah.
Now, when you go on to Google, you get that sort of AI Gemini thing that comes up first before you start getting all the listings. So if I want to do whatever I can in a legit fashion to make sure that I can be found when that comes up, is there anything specific that I can or should do, or is it more kind of buying into one of these programs that's going to kind of game the system?
Well, so two things. One is for most terms, if you add near me or a city, it doesn't trigger an AI overview. Um,
Oh,
Still,
okay.
so you're kind of protected there.
Okay.
The risk is more if they go into AI mode, or if if they don't go to Google at all at first and are just using ChatGPT or Claude. Um, so if you want to be listed in one of these AI lists, the best way is to do media, like as in like it can be local media. And then whenever there's like a noteworthy press mention, or if you get an award in the industry or whatever, do a press release to feed the LLMs with content about how you were kind of mentioned. So it doesn't have to be this like spam stuff. You can do it in a more legitimate way, and it will still, especially at a local level, it will work. If you're in like the kind of if you're white labeling creatine or like protein powder or something like that, then you need to do the spam tactics. But for this kind of local service provider, you can just do like get mentioned in 2 articles a year and win an award every couple years, do a press release about how you won the award, and you should be good.
Great. Great. All right. Well, we are out of time for this particular episode. So this is Dominick DeJoy from Osric Digital. Thank you so much, Dominick. If people wanted to find you, what would be the best way to find you?
Yeah, so company website is osricdigital.com. There's like a pretty extensive FAQ section about different topics in mostly in digital advertising. Also have a kind of YouTube channel that I'm starting. That's like kind of generally it's mostly PPC kind of nerd stuff, but I do kind of branch out a bit. And then LinkedIn would probably be the best way. So that's just Dominick DeJoy, my personal LinkedIn.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. For those of you listening, we bring you a new episode of Be Picked every week. We bring you all sorts of experts, like Dominick in this case, to talk about growing and building your business and getting out there and getting seen, because without clients, you have no business, and we want to help you get clients. So please join us on additional episodes of Be Picked and visit our website, www.bepicked.com. We'll see you on the next episode of the Be Picked podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
If you are enjoying this content, please like and subscribe. Thank you.